Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. If you are not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click the subscription button. I want to give a major shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting my content. If you would like to purchase merch, like this really cool hoodie that I have on tonight, unicorns, fairy dust, and AR-15s type of girl, you can get those at RhondaMary.com. All right, make sure you go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and you can help by sharing this content. Okay, so for tonight, we have a couple of different topics that we are going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Of course, we have to talk about all the posh celebrities, okay, that were able to be at the Super Bowl maskless while your kids are still at school wearing their masks. We're going to talk about this lawsuit, the settlement with Remington and Sandy Hook. And then we're also going to talk about what's going on with drill music and drill music culture after a recent statement from Mayor Eric Adams in New York. So tonight, my co-host is going to be Kevin Dixie, and I'm going to go ahead and bring him in and let him introduce himself. Introduce yourself, kind of tell them where they can find you and stuff like that.
All right. Well, my name is Kevin Dixie, known as the Real NOC. NOC stands for No Other Choice. I am I don't know, I guess a vet at this thing now. 20 years in community activism, advocacy, professional firearms trainer, public speaker, mentor. I run several community outreach programs. I'm involved in various different things around the country, and overall, man, just trying to leave a positive impact on America and the world. So that's what I do in many different regards. As far as to where you can find me, a website for all your training needs, all your accessory needs for your gear and guns that you might own. That's nootherchoice.com. Very simple, nootherchoice.com. If you want to find me on social media, it's The Real NOC for No Other Choice on all your social media platforms. The Real NOC. And if you're looking for community outreach assistance, or if you yourself are in a crisis, email us at aimingforthetruth@gmail.com. That's aimingforthetruth@gmail.com, and we'll get involved and see how we can help you out. And if you got any community programs that you need strong men to be involved in, don't hesitate to let us know either.
So I really like that extending of if you're in a crisis. I recently reached out to someone who was on Twitter, in that type of situation. And we're going to talk a little bit about COVID tonight. We're not going to super focus heavy on it. But I feel like there's been this very deep, dark cloud that has been over the country, specifically here as of late. I talked about how when I would go into places like DC, it would feel totally different from being in like Miami or Orlando. And I feel like you have a lot of people dealing with depression and sadness and loneliness, and you've had so many people that have lost their jobs. And I believe that greatly leads into some of this increase in crime and violence and all these other things that we're seeing. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but I feel like a lot of people just maybe feeling like they don't have a lot to like even live for. I don't know if that sounds weird, but it's just so many people struggling with mental health issues. So if you are one of those people, like he said, definitely reach out to his organization, as well as my email, my DMs, always available. I want to be as helpful as I can to people, specifically gun owners, because I feel like a lot of times, gun owners try to be like, they feel like they have to be like so strong. Then if you do, battle with anything, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, do you have any firearms? Like even before dealing with the actual issues at hand. So it's just a really crazy time. All right. Hey to everybody coming in the room. Hey, King BJ. Hey, Elwer Ivy. Hey, Brandon. Hey, Aaron Collins. Hey, Humble Servant. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start on somewhat of a lighter note. Let's go ahead and talk about all of the maskless, okay, celebrities that were at the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl just, looked so fun and nice, and like everybody was out there having a good time. So this is according to CNN.com. Maskless celebs at Super Bowl spark upset. Celebrities spotted not wearing a mask at Sunday's Super Bowl game were met with cries of hypocrisy by some on social media. Those attending the event at the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles were given KN95 masks because Los Angeles County requires masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19 at mega events. A few of the more than 70,000 attendees at the game were seen wearing them the open air venue. A Twitter user shared a video of some of the stars, including Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Jay-Z, and LeBron James in the stands without masks. Here's a video of every celebrity without the mask. The tweet read, but every kid in California will have to be wearing them tomorrow in school. They must all be holding their breaths the entire game. Okay. If you remember, we talked about that the other week when Mayor Garcetti, while they were at another game, was like, yeah, I was just holding my breath, bro, science. There were actually more celebrities present, but another scene in video, Charlize Theron was the subject of a tweet that included a photo of her imploring people to wear masks with a photo of her at the Super Bowl without one. Okay. So, of course, a lot of people are calling it hypocrisy. I'm sure CNN doesn't say much after that in this article because, of course, they don't know why regular people would have outrage or feel some kind of way about this, right? They have no clue, no idea. Here's a picture here where you can see some other celebrities: Kanye West, Ellen DeGeneres, the Kardashians, The Weeknd. So yeah, KD.
Well,
why only the peasants have to follow the rules? What's up with that?
well, I think once you get past the initial knee jerk reaction, giving that a little bit of a favor and a little just a tad bit of grace, once you get past that initial knee jerk reaction phase, the celebrities, the entertainers, the elites not wearing masks proves what so many Americans have been saying at one point or another during this entire situation when it comes to dealing with this pandemic, and that is this has been about money. So if you take the children that are going to be forced to wear masks in LA County, right? And you take those kids and you, well, their families rather, take their families. How many families out of LA County do you think it would take to have the money and resources of Jennifer Lopez by herself? How many families would it take to amass if they put all their money out of their bank accounts together? Because money makes policy. And that's what people need to realize, right? So you're not going to tell Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck, Kevin Hart, LeBron James, and whomever else. You're not going to tell these individuals that they have to wear a mask because they are the reason that LA exists. These are the type of people that make LA go around. And so you understand that the backlash you could face to them might be quiet, it might be behind the scenes, or you telling them to wear a mask when they're trying to enjoy and celebrate a large event like that then leads them to speaking out against the mask, right? So now all of a sudden you got some of the largest influencers in the world that are saying, you know what, we are tired of this. This is ridiculous. And if they all flip on you at one time because you harassed all of them at one time, then there isn't, hey, I'm going to fall by myself. Now, what are you going to do? Take down Jennifer Lopez, LeBron James, and Kevin Hart at the same time over the same issue? Probably not. It's too much money.
One of the articles that I was reading was basically hold on, regular people, peasants, pump your brakes. Okay. They had to be tested for COVID. And if they had COVID, they wouldn't be able to go into the event. And I'm thinking, you really going to turn Beyonce around for the sniffles? Right? You really going to turn around a celebrity that's worth $1 billion that quote unquote has asymptomatic COVID? That's really what I'm supposed to believe. You know what I mean? So it's the constant like the constant badgering of our intelligence. It's the constant like disrespect that I don't know what more it'll take for people to see this. Cheap plug, entertainers are not leaders. Teas available now at RhondaMary.com. However, right, these people will get on their Twitters, their Instagrams, and they will say whatever they're supposed to say, whatever they're paid to say, whatever it says in their contract it has to say, and then they will turn around and do something totally different. And like, you know, on some levels, I'm like, do I blame them? I mean, I think people should be genuine. I think you should be honest. But I'm the type of person, I'm not going to do something that I want to do. I don't want to do. But the difference between me and them is I'm not going to do it. And I'm also going to tell you I'm not going to do it. So,
Well, I think that it's another thing too. On top of all of this crap, is the simple fact that everyone's tired of it now. Them too. You know, LeBron James came up under some heat. There's this. I think everybody's seen it being used for multiple reasons. There's this meme, this cartoon meme where Spider-Man is three Spider-Men standing there and they're all pointing their fingers at each other. And
mm-hmm.
LeBron James shared one of those that said cold flu COVID, what's going on? Right.
Right.
After he was set out a couple of games dealing with that. And so you already saw him challenge it. And it's just speaking to the mindset that yeah, even if people are saying or going along with a thing for, let's just say, financial gain, or for their financial gains aren't impacted, which is really what it comes down to, then at some point you get frustrated and you get tired. And I think that they're getting tired too. Like everybody has accepted that this is going to be something, just like we have to accept that the flu exists. We have to accept that, you know, hey, you could probably catch pneumonia. These are things we have to accept. And hopefully every individual takes it upon themselves to make sure that they're doing the right thing for preventative measures of getting sick. You know, we go back to, you know, washing your hands, just general health care stuff, right? Making sure you're taking vitamins, eating healthy things of that nature. And if you don't want to do that, that's cool too. You can do whatever you want to do. We accept the consequences for our actions in life. And I think right now everybody just wants to get back to doing it.
Whatever happened with the whole Kyrie Irving thing? I know initially people were coming, you know, so hard on him, and I'm sorry, somebody in the chat, somebody in the chat caught that. Look, they were being very tough on Kyrie Irving, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and now it's like nobody's saying anything. It's almost as if people have moved on, right? Literally just a couple of weeks ago, you know, it was a different story. Like the narratives changed so quickly. It's a few weeks ago you have a 9-year-old being, you know, escorted out of a museum by a police officer, to now you have many of these cities starting to drop these mandates. So whatever happened with that whole Kyrie Irving
Well,
thing?
as of right now, New York still has their rule, so that rule hasn't changed. No, they got a new governor. I mean, I'm sorry, new mayor in New York, and I understand we're going to bring him up later. But speculation was that, you know, and he let it kind of ride low. Speculation, he didn't confirm or deny it, that there might be some small changes when he took office, and that was not true. So right now, Kyrie Irving is still allowed to play away games, but he can't play home games in Brooklyn, which is really funny because non-vax players from other cities, let's just say you're coming out of Dallas, right? You
Mhm,
play for the Mavericks. You go
mhm.
to Boston and play and you are not vax, you can still play. I'm sorry, you can still play in Brooklyn. But Kyrie Irving, who lives in Brooklyn and plays for that team, can't play because he's not vax. But you can come from Texas and come up and play in the same gym with him. Well, play in a gym that he's not allowed to play in, even though you're not vax either. So
So,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
so that's currently happening. You currently have players that are unvaxxed that are coming into Brooklyn to play. Like that's a thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen one player be told that they can't play because they're non-vaxxed in Brooklyn, except for Kyrie Irving or anybody on the Brooklyn Nets.
This is what has been my main problem. It's been more about compliance do as I say, even if it makes absolutely no sense. And I think that a lot of people finally now are waking up, their eyes are opening to this. Has a lot of this in a lot of ways has been an absolute charade, and in a lot of ways government officials have helped exacerbate some of the problems that we've seen from this. So I mean, it's just been crazy, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I do hope that what we saw at the Super Bowl is a sign. Okay. Kim's going to let me know. Kim's in a chat out there in California, what's going on out there. But hopefully this is a sign that people are tired of it, ready to move forward, ready to go back to, somewhat normal, like the people in Florida and in Texas and some of these other places. So, and in Georgia too. It was pretty cool when I was there. When was that? Like a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I've been back to normal. I can't speak for everybody else. So, but let's talk about the halftime show. Did you watch the halftime show?
I did.
So people are saying that it was the best halftime show in all Super Bowl history. Y'all let me know in the chat what you think about that. I don't know, if I agree with that, but I'm also not like a music head either. It's not really my lane. So probably shouldn't try to embarrass myself talking about it. But what do you think about it, KD?
I enjoyed the show. I will say that now I have to go back through my archives because I've watched it as long as I can remember. But that one was good. I think this one was the first time that hip hop was center stage. Mm-hmm. So to have a hip hop icon like Dr. Dre and Snoop, and bringing it up in times a little bit, 50 Cent, and then I don't think people realize how much Dr. Dre was involved in Mary J's career. So to see her getting up there performing the hits, and then obviously Eminem is, think what you want to think of him, but he's one of the largest musicians of our time. So to see all of them up there and giving, good hip hop representation, rap music, whatever you want to categorize it as, I think was great. But then when you start comparing it, I don't know, man, like in recent history, that Bruno Mars Super Bowl halftime show was off the chain. So I would have to really sit down.
So that's one that stuck out in my mind, the Bruno Mars and the Beyonce. And it could be more because that's like my era of music, as opposed to like, the Snoop Dogg's and the Dr. Dre's. However, when I compare the actual show, like the production of the show, I do think that this one was much better. But the energy, the music, I think like the dancing and stuff like that, some of that was better in that show as well. So, and then like you said, I would have to, I feel like I would, but then if we have to go through the archives, were they the best, like Super Bowl?
Well, it's just everybody's got such short-term memory. So I don't know. And then you got to remember too, this was in LA. So to add Dr. Dre, Snoop, just them two, and you put them in LA at the Super Bowl, like that was a big celebration for LA themselves, for their music, not only for the Super Bowl to be in their town, but then some of their largest icons in history to also bring that West Coast flair. And I think that had to amplify, right? Because it's on the West Coast, it's in LA, it's Dre and Snoop. I mean, it's gonna get blown up. And kudos to them. They had to be big. I know if Super Bowl was in St. Louis, and the biggest musician we have out in recent history is Nelly, but we even thought that was great when he did the Super Bowl. So when it's your hometown, but when you put the vibe with the hometown, with the classic artists, I mean, it was a good look. Shouts out to LA. They got that one in.
So Kim said she's a bit biased because she knows Snoop and Dre personally. Rakim said he's always said that Prince had one of the best halftime performances. So while we're talking about this flair, right, let's talk about, because Jay-Z was, partly responsible for this, okay? Jay-Z has a lot to do with, the halftime shows for the last few years. He's heavily influential in that. I think right down to hand picking the artists that are performing during that. Now, also, okay, we can't ignore that Eminem kneeled, okay, during the halftime Super Bowl, and apparently that was a gesture, a Colin Kaepernick style gesture. Um, Now let's talk about that a little bit, because here we are, I think 6 years later from the time that Kaepernick kneeled, okay, originally kneeled. You recently had, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, I think it was like a coach or something. I know you can help me if I'm mistaken, but someone recently came out and made allegations, racism allegations against the NFL. I believe they're going to be suing. And so it's a lot of things that have happened in these last 6 years or so. What do you think about Eminem kneeling and the direction that we've seen the NFL go in the last few years?
I'm not moved by it at all, one way or another. One, it's not really shocking because it's Eminem. Eminem's been immersed in black culture since forever, right? His entire life. So, and I would take that the same way if I took another artist that was doing it. I'm not moved by it. It was. I get he was being symbolic. I get that he was because he was also told don't do it. So he did it anyway, right? Kind of standing up to standing up to the establishment, which Eminem has been known to do from time to time. So for me, I'm not moved one way or another by it. It's just something he did for whatever reason he did it. It doesn't. And then as far as Jay Z goes, look, one thing we have to understand is Jay Z is involved in one way or another in the production of the halftime show. One, understand artists don't directly get paid for the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, the money you can generate off of that exposure is probably payment enough. Let's just say that, right? The money you can generate off the exposure. So that is an entertainment value that doesn't even directly pay the artist involved. So that being said, you are not even giving the NFL's money per se, right? Outside of whatever they spend to produce the show, you're not even giving their money to the artists for those artists to be able to go back and do whatever they want to do to help their communities or whatever the case may be. They're not making direct income that way. And then on top of that, it's the entertainment piece. So if we aren't making money from it to go directly anyway, to go do and change the things we need to change, then what are you doing? Once again, we're back to entertaining people, right? And so after they're entertained, what changes? So Jay-Z's been involved for what, 3-4 years now? You got Brian Flores, formerly head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who is now suing the NFL for basically discrimination. And the head coaching positions, the leaders of the teams, right? You got over 30 teams, and you got 2 African American coaches since the lawsuit was announced, and then one gentleman that identifies as biracial. So nothing has really changed on that level. I mean, to the point to where you were going to take an NFL head coach that has coached in the playoffs before, has coached in the Super Bowl, and you were going to give a guy that was coming straight from high school coaching the job before Brian Flores announced the fact that he was launching a lawsuit. Then all of a sudden you pull back and gave a black head coach the job, but you were going to be willing to give a dude that was coaching high school football the head coaching position over an NFL team before you gave a guy that had Super Bowl experience that was black that opportunity. So, I'm cool with the, have your fingers in everything, be involved in everything, shift and cause change, but we're right back to symbolism because we aren't pulling anything out of it that really brings forward change. Now, you put a head coach in a position, you start getting people from off the field into more of these GM positions, the coaching positions. Then these gentlemen are leading these other men. We got to remember, some of these kids coming from college are 22 years old. Now we got these men in position to lead them, help them, guide them, and they're being viewed as leaders, right? Because they're leading a squad of 53 men plus staff. So a head coach can have over 100 people up under him at a time. So he is leading and directing and cultivating other men. And it seems to be an opportunity that although we can entertain at the Super Bowl, they still don't trust us to lead men.
That's such a good point. I felt the exact same way. I felt nothing about this Eminem supposedly, kneeling. There are some rumors, like Kim said, that the NFL claimed they said they didn't say he couldn't kneel. Some people were saying maybe he kneeled as a tribute to Tupac. Some people thought he was tired, maybe taking a breath during the performance. So for a lot of people, it wasn't even clear what was happening. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I don't think it makes you revolutionary to go perform at a Super Bowl and call yourself defying the Super Bowl as you benefit directly from their platform and use their platform. Like, I just don't, you know, that, because even what comes with that, like you said, you're not getting paid off of it. So in some ways you're trying to, oh well, I know this is the Super Bowl, but how can I really take advantage of this moment? How can I bump it up a notch so that way my name is in the paper over all of the other artists? I'm saying paper like I'm from the 1960s. My name is in the headline, over the other 4 or 5 artists that I performed with. Um, and I remember telling people, this was when the news first came out, when Jay-Z was like, yeah, nah, we ain't kneeling no more. We passed that. And I remember telling people, like, no shade to Jay-Z. I think he's a good artist. I think that some of the things, his philanthropy and some of the things that he does are great things. But this is him getting the bag. This is a money move. You know, this is not some revolutionary act. Even the way after supposedly protesting, because I actually don't even know if that happened in real time, but some way after supposedly protesting for however many years, the way you strategically and ironically, stereotypically pull Black people back into watching the NFL is through entertainment. But like you said, still, when you look at the coaching, the management, and all of these other things, not much changing. When we have things, people like a Amir Locke being in the media for maybe 2 or 3 days. You have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden that say nothing, don't even mention it. Now these things are being swept under the rug that it's not a presidential election year. You know what I mean? So for me, looking at it, it's just funny. Like, it's just funny. I find all of it ironic. I find all of it interesting. I find it very funny that the people that were just bullying people, literally bullying people for continuing to watch the NFL, are now totally plugged back in just because somebody rapped a couple of lyrics to you. And like, it's cool, you know what I mean? Like, watch it. I didn't watch the game, but I was like, hey, if I'm gonna talk about the Super Bowl, I at least gotta know what happened during the halftime show and things like that. So I watched some of the clips from the halftime show. But like, I technically feel the same way then that I did now. I just feel like the actual mission statement, and I said this, you can go back and find very old videos of me saying this, as far as a call to action, a mission statement, anything coming from Colin Kaepernick or his team, anything from passing the ball to leaders, organizations, political activists, and just a direct call to action. None of that was done. So to me, a logical person, a lot of it never just made sense from the beginning. So now this is kind of all culminating to this recent Super Bowl, and everybody's back partying. So hey, turn up. I don't know. Live life. It is what it is.
Yeah, not really moved by it, and I think too, I think it will help everybody on both ends. You got some people. I'm talking about the extremists on both ends. Got some people that's like, screw foosball, it's stupid. Don't watch that dumb thing. I'm talking about the extremists, not people that just happen not to enjoy the sport. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna watch what the hell I want to watch. And I like seeing some of these brothers that have made it. I had a couple of fans make it to the league, changed their families' lives for forever. I have worked behind the scenes with several major league players in all different sports, from basketball down to hockey, that have helped reach out in the community. I've been a part of those efforts. They've reached out to me to help educate them about firearms. Like, so I can't be that dude that is yelling, "Oh, screw you." Now that's a big deal. I mean, a lot of people have changed generations because of the opportunity that sports gives them. So I'm never going to downplay that. And I'll tell anybody, you think it's go out there and look. I'm built for football, so I thought, and nope, that is a tough thing to do, right? I'm not saying that, and I agree. Like, they're not, because you play a sport doesn't mean that everybody should bow down and listen to everything you say. Absolutely not. However, I'm not going to can those guys either. And then the people on the other end that are kind of like, oh well, we're gonna use it to change because we're performing. The league is, look, man, like it is, just because somebody gives you a stage doesn't mean they've given you a chance. All right, this is where we're going to put you to make you believe that you have made it, but you aren't really making any decisions. What did we give you? A concert promoter position? Well, I mean, what do we really give you? Right? So we have to understand that in both angles. I watch it for the entertainment value. It's entertaining to me. I didn't look at Colin Kaepernick kneeling. I looked at it symbolic. I knew well, originally what he was supposed to be doing anyway. I understood that. But I told people in the beginning, I said, hey, I don't knock anybody's way of protesting. But people were getting all upset about it. I'm like, it don't faze me one way or another. That's the way he wants to bring attention to it. I have my way of bringing attention to the issues that I want to bring attention to. So everybody to me was just getting really, really wrapped up in something. Like the people that said, I'm never watching football again because the NFL allowed him to kneel. And it's unpatriotic. I'm like, cool. Then tell me how patriotic it was for the NFL to charge the armed forces to even advertise their events.
And look, some of those people, or I assume, I can't say exactly, but I believe some of those people were complaining this year about the halftime show. And I'm like, what you doing watching? I thought you were done with the NFL. So what's the problem with the entertainment? So D. Chase says she's absolutely wrong. A lot of things. She really doesn't have full details on. You have to understand what Jay is doing behind the scenes. She needs full scope. Let me tell y'all why, D. Chase. This is one of the most ridiculous stances you can take. If you are going to be loud about your protests, you need to be just as loud about solutions. You need to be just as loud about what you're doing. We are the only people that be talking about, oh, you just don't know yet. It's just behind the scenes. It's just, they can't tell you. What's the secret? What's the secret? Okay. A lot of our attentions were used, stolen, manipulated, taken, a range of words and emotions during the time that all of this was going on. During the time Colin Kaepernick was kneeling, during the time that you had a lot of the major police brutality cases that were going on, you couldn't catch a moment where people weren't talking about it on Twitter, online, on TV, on CNN, at work. So why so quiet now? That is not a valid excuse. And if y'all are going to let celebrities use that excuse every single time, of course they don't have to hold to anything that they're said they're going to do, or maybe pretending that they're going to do. And I want to clarify, okay? Jay-Z is the league is, and I covered this content, okay? You will find it here on my channel. May have to go back a few months, but I covered this content and we talked about the organizations. I gave you guys where to find them and the name of the organizations that money is. They are donating some funds to like nonprofits, okay? Turns out that most of those funds are specifically for LGBT organizations. They're not going to criminal justice, like bail and all of these other things. They're not going to that. And I'm not saying if that's what the NFL wants to give their money to, it's their freaking money. But people have to stop doing things, starting things one way and ending another. Starting things on the back of a certain group and then funding others. It doesn't make sense. And me, for one, I'm going to call it out. And so that does not take away from the things that Jay-Z has done, and I want to be clear about that. Okay. I think that him and Beyonce both are known for donating to several different organizations, giving to less fortunate, right? Even how we look at the demographics of specifically Beyonce with her performers being very specific about, hiring, uh, uh, well, particularly a lot of women, but even from different body shapes to skin tones to hair textures to, when it comes to the whole representation thing, she particularly has done it all. So I'm not gonna, take away from those things, but I hate this. Oh, it's just, like what?
Now, I think you had a very, very balanced approach. And I don't think, I tell people all the time, like, I am a hip hop fan. Like Jay, that's my guy when it comes to making the songs, and I can watch what the things he's done. I remember Jay-Z leading the charge, being one of the leaders to the in the charge of stopping stop and frisk in New York. Like, so he has absolutely done some phenomenal things. His beautiful wife have done phenomenal things. I don't agree with them on everything, but guess what? If I keep talking to you, Rhonda, I'm not going to agree with you on everything. It's not, but I think that you have a shirt that really, really will help people relax. When you say entertainers are not leaders, I am cool with that because I'm like, hey, man, whatever you're doing, please, I will congratulate you. I'll give you your flowers while you're here because those people's lives that you have impacted, I know they look up to you. They love you. You probably changed families, and God bless you for that. And I do not mean that in a sarcastic way. At the same time, when it comes to somebody saying, hey, look at all this stuff they did, but over here you got to trust that they're working behind the scenes. Let me bring an example. And I'm not a celebrity, but I am one of the people that said, yeah, I'm working behind the scenes in this industry to make sure we get more representation. And that was 6 years ago. We got more representation. So you can see my effort, you can see my work, right? Partner with other people's. I wasn't in that alone, just like Jay-Z is not in that fight alone, right? But at some point, if somebody says, yo, give me a couple of years, I got you, you're gonna see something. Cool, but we 4 years in. We still got lawsuits being launched. And on top of that, I ain't really heard you say nothing about the brother that's suing him. So you know what I mean? Like, so it's okay to hold people accountable. But I'm not. I tell you what, from a family perspective, I can't have my kids starving and look at them and say, don't worry about it. Daddy working on it. And then come back in 10 hours and they still ain't got no food. They're going to lose trust in me eventually.
Right. Raquel says celebrities love to try to convince us that they're playing chess when they're really just getting a position to get a check. Call it what it is. And that was exactly my point. Like, I didn't have no ill will towards Jay-Z, but it was obvious to me, like, bro, like, you trying to get a bag, like you seen opportunity to wiggle yourself in. Cool, if it works for out for other artists and hip-hop artists and R&B artists, people who we listen to that we might think there's legends that may have not had a chance otherwise, cool, like more power to them. But don't act like that performance is something of like intrinsic value to me. It's like me sitting at home, oh yeah, that's cool. And like you said, short memory, by freaking next week, we'll be like, what? Oh yeah, they did have a halftime show. You know what I mean? So like, let's just call it what it is. But as we're talking about this, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of hip hop. And like I said, I'm not like a hip hop head, right? That's not really my strong suit. However, I think that a lot of us that are somewhat familiar with the legacies of your Dr. Dre's, your Snoop Dogg's, might have not imagined to see them on a stage and I believe they're late 40s to possibly 50s.
Oh yeah, they up there.
If I'm not mistaken. And so for some, even that within itself is very momentous. We have a lot of Black men who, you know, die at an early age, especially when they're entertainment industry. It's nothing for us to see news articles every few months of, someone passing at 40, 45, 50, and things like that. And sometimes even younger, like what we're going to talk about here soon with what's going on with this drill music now in New York. But some people within that, just within itself, I know, kind of means a lot to people because, you have the Tupacs, you have the Nipsey Hussles who have not been able to, unfortunately, have that same story. Um, what do you think about that? What do you think about, just do you think that hip hop and the way that people have done it have changed, or do you think that certain people are just able to break beyond certain barriers? Why can that look so differently depending on who you are and where you are?
I think one thing that we've messed up when it comes to hip hop. Now, for reference, I am a 70s baby, late 70s, and so I grew up in the era when hip hop was changing from hip hop to kind of rap, right, and then gangster rap and things of that nature. I come from the MC Rens, the NWAs, the Curtis Blow, Eric B. and Rakim, Above the Law. I come from, that era of music. And one thing that I've always been able to do, and I don't know if I was just unique in that, I enjoy music for music. I think where we've made the mistake is that we have allowed, and it can get deep, but music is not the problem. The evolution of music is not even the issue. Now, when we went from hip hop, where you're talking about like Curtis Blow, MC Shan, KRS-One, and then it kind of ballooned over into what most would categorize as gangster rap. It's still just entertainment. And here's why I tell people that we have to be able to acknowledge that before we can fix the underlying issue. In a rap album, I can probably listen to one of the most gruesome albums there is. And they might kill about, with their lyrics, they might kill about 20 people. All right. One dude, they might kill him twice. Okay. Might kill about 20 people. I can go watch an action movie. 20 people then died in the first 15 minutes. And action movies they're spending sometimes 80, $90 million producing these pieces, then making $1 billion off of them. A rap album, if it sells 1 million copies, it's considered a big success, right? A million times, let's say average $10. So, 1 million times 10, and that's what it's made versus something we've made almost $1 billion off of when you come talking about violence and people dying and being shot, thrown off roof, executed, beheaded, all kind of stuff. Because we are being taught to view movies as entertainment. And I believe a lot of times, and when it comes to music, because the artists do such a great job, and because music is a universal language, music really does speak to the soul of people. It does. Like be in a sad place and put on some R&B when you sad. You see what happened to you, right? Because music is the language of the soul. It will speak. Everybody has music that touches them. So, well, most people anyway. So when we talk about the evolution or changing of rap music to categorize it, we are becoming lazy in our parenting. We are becoming lazy in our influence, and we are now becoming a lot better over the last several years, with men actually taking their spot back to say, no, that's not what we're doing. We are separating this as entertainment. And big shouts out even to a lot of the entertainers that have stood up and said, bro, even if I'm rapping about something I did 15 years ago, I'm not doing that now. I'm entertaining. We telling a story, right? We're not living the story we're telling. And then obviously you're going to have your outliers. So when you look at, and may God rest his soul, when you look at Nipsey Hussle, Nipsey Hussle wasn't killed because he was a rapper. He was killed over envy and jealousy because he was a rapper. Had nothing to do with a rap beef, right? But people that don't understand or follow to be like, oh my God, look, it's so dangerous. Nipsey Hussle was essentially, and I'm not in a hood, so I don't know all the details, but Nipsey Hussle was essentially killed over a guy he didn't want to associate with for various reasons. The rumor is the guy was blamed for being an informant to the police. I don't know how true that is, don't know. But for whatever reason, Nipsey preferred for the young man not to be around him. Dude got jealous because Nipsey was investing in his community. Nipsey, through gangster rap, bought a strip mall, was educating people on cryptocurrency, different investments. He was a philanthropist himself. He was giving everyone in his neighborhood a job. He was convincing those young men to, leave the violent lifestyle of being a gang member, come do something better. Nipsey Hussle was teaching other young men getting into music about the business of music, right? Owning your masters, being independent, controlling your financial future, managing your money, how to invest your money. He was teaching all those things. And so we can also talk about that evolution of music too, where now these young men are starting to see the business side of it and are becoming more adapt to handling business. And then just like all the positives, you're going to have some negatives. So now that we have the internet, right? Because you used to have to go buy a CD. I still remember going to Street Warehouse, had to put on the headphones, play the CD on the thing. I still remember that, right? So, but now you got these kids that I got a beef with this dude to stay on the other side of town, right? And now all I need is a couple of software apps on my computer and YouTube, and I'm at it, right? I can put out a whole rap video, get my homie with a decent camera, and we can put out a whole video going back and forth against each other. And I think people have taken that and they've said, well, now these kids are being too violent and this music is went too violent and we need to stop it. But how are you going to stop it? You know what would happen?
Let's help before you.
How many white kids in the suburbs right now?
Hold on before you give that thought, because I want you to hear what Mayor Eric Adams wants to do, and then we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, what real rapping was, but I called my son, and he had no idea what drill rapping was, but I called my son, and he sent me some videos, and it is alarming.
A gritty form of rap with songs and viral dances made to celebrate local murders.
The violence is infused in the music.
2 drill rappers have been murdered in New York City so far this month. The story of 18-year-old Jaquan McKinley, known as C-High, brought Mayor Eric Adams to tears Thursday.
The story of Jaquan breaks my heart. His story tests my spirit.
McKinley was shot and killed leaving a recording studio in Bed-Stuy Sunday morning. On February 1st, 22-year-old Tajay Dobson, known as T.Wu, was killed in a drive-by shooting in Canarsie, just hours after securing a record deal.
There have been lately a number of shootings of known rappers, some very known with good careers right in front of them.
Aisha Sekou runs Street Corner Resources in Harlem. Sekou says her organization is increasingly responding to shootings, stabbings, and beatdowns that are carried out in retaliation for drill music songs that brag about local murders.
There are calls to action in the music. On the grave, to smoke on the grave of someone.
Hot 97 DJ Drewski recently said he'll no longer play what he calls diss music on the radio. But rapper and Brooklyn native Fabio Foreign defended drill this week, saying it's not the music killing people. Mayor Eric Adams told Pix 11 today he's focused on the social media sites where drill videos can rack up tens of thousands of views.
We're going to ask these companies, we're going to ask them for good corporate responsibility. This is contributing to the violence that we're seeing all over this country.
The mayor is also
let me let y'all hear this part too.
Calling on prominent rappers to step up and step in.
So that kind of goes back to what you were saying, but he's saying that he's going to meet with prominent rappers to start talking out about this. He is going to reach out to faithful leaders to try to help and create partnerships. And also that he's going to reach out to social media companies to see how they could censor this music.
So let me get this right. You're going to reach out to religious leaders. Mm-hmm. You're going to reach out to rappers. Okay, I get the rappers. And you're going to reach out to social media to put more censorship on people. Well, one, let's start with social media. We got enough censorship. And although I want these young men to calm down as well, unlike most of the people that's talking about it, I've been doing this for a long time. And yeah, if they're putting unfortunate things in their music and using it, then yeah, that needs to be addressed. But that needs to be addressed at the source, which is the people, not the music. When you start doing that, saying, "Hey, we want you to suffocate this," okay, what's next? They also blame guns for a ton of way more violence they ever gonna blame music for. So okay, take all the guns off. Oh, what's next? Oh, COVID misinformation. Yeah, that's causing people harm and danger. Take that off, right? So so you're helping, right, with censorship. So I'm never gonna be for that. Let's do the hard work, which is helping the young men, because in all of that, I didn't hear him saying anything about talking to them directly. Sounds like he want everybody else to talk to them. He didn't say, I want to have a local community meeting. I want to engage with these young men. He didn't say that. And then the other thing,
he didn't say that he wants to work with the faith leaders and some of the people in the communities to kind of go in and start talking to these young men. So what it actually looks like in real time, and the steps that would take, I'm not exactly sure, but that was kind of how he conceptualized it.
I don't know how long it's gonna take these people to realize. Do you know the amount of young men that listen to a deacon in a cheap ass suit yelling at him about how much he's supposed to love Jesus? You don't even know how to relate to these young men. You don't, like, when I say speak, now don't get me wrong, there's probably some brothers that's been around the block a long time and go back and do good work. I'm not knocking them. But when you say I want to go talk to faith leaders, tell me the last time a 15-year-old told you that he absolutely changed his life off something the preacher said. Mm-hmm. Because what the problem is, when brothers, first of all, we always got to rely. I'm not gonna get religious, but they always want to say, "Oh, we're gonna get the religious people involved. We're gonna get the religious community leaders involved. We're gonna do this, and do that." Right? First of all, those people spend most of their time preaching inside the same four walls to deprive people and extract the money and finances from the community people to do whatever they're gonna do at their church, right? Which is a whole nother conversation. Then on top of that, when you do go out, you're not showing up relating to people. You are showing up like you are better than thou. You are showing up in your little suit, and you got your Bible and you're thumping it a little bit, saying, "Come on, you need to get it together." Got these young men ain't trying to hear nothing you trying to say. What they want is somebody they can look at and say, "You've been here, you've done that, and you relate to me." But if you step into me in a suit, remember, a suit says what? You got to think about the mental effect of a suit. A suit, when you are approaching somebody and it says authority, professional, right? Maybe superior, depending on who you are. Now, with that same mentality, these young men, how do they feel about authority? So as soon as you say to me in a suit and like you better than me, I done turned you off before you even got to me. You might get 4-5% of them, but for most of them, man, as soon as they see you coming, and they might entertain you if they got a little bit of respect. All right, brother Jefferson, I hear you, man. Yeah, I'm gonna do better. You know what I'm saying? I got you. As soon as you hit that corner, hey man, get the strap, get the 8-ball, get that work. Let's go.
Jefferson.
I ain't trying to hear that.
Okay, so what are they trying to hear? What are they? Because I don't think that censorship is the solution. Let me start by saying that. And in a moment where you literally have people in, even though this is in Canada, and we can look at GoFundMe, because I think GoFundMe is technically located in the States. But even what we saw, right, happening in Canada, when one of the government officials comes out and says, "Oh, we don't like how you're protesting, so we're gonna stop your bank activity. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that." I don't agree with when the government starts to step into what these businesses are doing and saying, "Oh, we don't like what these kids are talking about, so we don't want you to allow them to talk about it on your platform." Now, if the platform on its own accord has, okay, these are our guidelines, this is what we want, these are the rules we want you to fall within, that's a different thing. But when you have the government poking and prodding, social media platforms to dismiss, censor, get rid of the people or the speech that they don't typically agree with, I think that that's problematic. And, you know, I'm not super duper like familiar with drill rap. Supposedly, it's even a little bit more like aggressive and violent than just normal rap, where they're already talking about killing. You can go to any YouTube video, they'll say the N word or any other word for that matter. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of censorship going on there either, but this is supposedly even more violent. But every time the government gets involved, it just almost makes stuff worse. And not only that, you create outliers, which makes people almost more drawn to them. Because now I really want to know what you have to say and why the government is trying to stop me from hearing you saying it. And it's almost like a repeat of was this the 80s or 90s? The 90s with the 2 Live Crew.
Yeah, when it was the I think that was in the 80s, leading into the 90s. Might have been late 80s when they were saying 2 Live Crew was too sexualized, and they led kind of a national campaign to get them banned and had a lot of their concerts canceled. See that?
What
that's
was
the
that like? Like, what was happening during that time?
Well, you know what? 2 Live Crew at the time, people thought it was real raunchy. It's something you see on Instagram every day now. But at the time, you know, to see girls twerking in bikinis and taking their tops off, and hey, 2 Live Crew was wild, you know. But that was their way of expressing and having a good time.
So, do you think every generation has because I'm sure, like at that time, let's say maybe my great grandmother was probably like, oh my God, these kids, you know, I just can't believe this. And y'all's generation is something else. And then now you're probably looking at your kids' music or the Instagram or some of the things that's going on TV, and you like, this don't have nothing on, you know, what I saw when I was growing up. So is there like a too far? Or does every generation just, because most people, as we get older, we tend to either we become more conservative. I don't know if we become more conservative, or as our generation just gets older and this new generation has less rules than we had, it makes us feel we're more conservative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the only issue that we have with today's music is that the creators of the music aren't being cultivated, they aren't being poured into, and they aren't being raised. So you're basically looking at young men who, unfortunately, in some of these situations, will commit the acts they commit, whether they were making the music or not. They're just using that as an outlet, right? But when we start saying, oh, let's blame the music, and to your point, every generation is going to say, oh my God, your music was horrible, or your music is worse than ours. I thought ours was bad. Yours is worse, right? That's going to continue on and continue on and continue on. The point is, if I can let a kid go to a movie and watch women get raped, you can watch men that killing men that look like them. You can watch people, you know, blow up things, behead people, chop their limbs off, torture them. We can watch all that, but for some reason, we don't blame that for the actions of the children. I believe when it comes to
that is music just easier? Are there any, you know, what makes people think, oh, it's just this one thing I'm gonna pinpoint, it's the music? Like, why don't they blame the movies?
A couple of reasons. One is because of they are refusing to acknowledge one thing, which could work one way or the other. Music is old. Music predates movies by far, right? It is a language that people speak. So music does touch people a little bit differently because it's been around for so long. I mean, music is the one thing that you can just hear a particular rhythm and you can barely hear it, and all of a sudden your whole body movement can change, right? It is a language that we all speak. At the same time, it's the easy thing. I'll just blame the music. So let me ask you a question. So is the music the bigger problem, or is the educational systems that they came up in the bigger problem? Is the music the bigger problem, or the fact that we are still dealing with prison to pipeline issues? Is the music the bigger problem, Or is them coming outside every day looking at an area that says nothing but you are hopeless and going to be in constant despair a bigger problem? Is music the bigger problem from the 80s and 90s? Or are we still feeling the effects from the 60s and 70s when you paid our women to keep the fathers out the household, encouraged them to have more children while you were still giving them laborers jobs so the government could continue to pay them? Now that those kids are having kids and they are out of control and they aren't being raised properly, we just blame the music? Or do you really truly want to deal? Why don't we can fast forward? Why don't we go to the 90s when we broke up hundreds with the crime bill, broke up hundreds of thousands of families and took the leaders out of those families, and all of a sudden you got leaders trying to lead people when everybody blind? Or is that the bigger problem? Was it easier to say the fact that you put a rhythm together and put some words over it, that is the reason why we have all these community issues? It could be a reason, but it is not the reason. And trying to censor somebody and take their music off of the internet, what is that going to do? What is it? So if they take their music off, or those two dudes right now, if they can't make their 12 blocks from each other, they can't make music, is there beef over? Right? Or do you want to seriously deal with the issues? Why don't we deal with the fact that these young men, and this is once again just a small issue, why don't we want to deal with the fact that these young men aren't even properly being educated on the value of life? You give them nothing to say that their life has equity and value, right? The only people that the same social media platforms you want to take their music off of, the visions that they show these little dudes that are successful is the hype, the rare, the football player, the entertainer, the athlete. What they don't show them is you can be like Kevin Dixie. I don't think nothing wrong with that. You can be better than me. But I come from the hood too. I come from water on cornflakes with syrup for a little bit of flavor, sugar sandwiches, peeling around the molded bread, sleeping outside. I come from the shits, right? But right now I'm sitting in a damn near 4,000 square foot townhome, 3 vehicles sitting outside. I'm all right. I got a little money in the bank. I got this little shit called credit, right? No dad, but now I got a wife and 2 beautiful kids, and I'm actually leading the family, generationally changing the things that are around me. Why don't we teach them that that's success?
So
Because
how
you're
do
trying to
we
show
do
them
it?
that through their music, they can achieve the levels of a Jay-Z. They can achieve the levels of LeBron James. And we understand that's very rare, right? So they're also using that as a way to break themselves out of the situations that they are rapping about, because that same social media platform that you want to take their music away is the same vehicle that is driving constant images into their mind to tell them this is the only way out. So miss me with the music. If you want to control, they're not doing the hard work. This is glazing over. They don't want to bake the donuts. They don't want to get back there and get the dough from the raw materials and bake it all up. They just want to show up when it's nice and warm and lay the glaze over it and say that that's going to fix it. And it's not.
Okay, but how do we do it? How was it done for you, right? Because you apparently had a similar story. So what sparked this changing you and didn't lead you down a violent path or a deadly path or whatever?
Well,
how do we make more Kevin Dixies?
We do that by addressing the issues, which is what I do through Aiming for the Truth, right? So one thing we got to think about, and I'm not going to go into detail about all of them because I want to respect your time. But when we start talking about, think about it. We send a soldier to war, right? For 4 years, right? Let's say they see a little bit of combat, and some of them don't even have to. They come back with this thing. There's a good chance they come back with this thing called PTSD, right? Because they're seeing something that is abnormal, something they're not used to, something that human beings aren't meant to see a lot of times, that it can cause a lot of harm to them. But hopefully, I know the VA could do a lot better too, because the way they treat veterans is kind of deplorable. But they have to come back home and they have to get that dealt with. If not, it can have long-term effects. Well, if you can get that from an 18, 19-year-old that went to potential combat for 4 years, what happens to the 10-year-old that's been living in it for 15, 16, 20 years? What kind of trauma are they dealing with? So what kind of mental effects are going to go on with them, right? So first we start off by dealing with mental health and making it appropriate and understanding that the biggest driver of the mental health is the trauma that they are seeing every day that has been normalized. So they don't even view it as trauma. So thus the chaos becomes normalized, and you have to separate that, right? And you're going to do that in large groups sometimes, like we've done, and sometimes it takes, hell, I've sat with one person for 4 or 5 hours. just for they can distinguish that. And then once you let them know it's okay to talk, okay, now that we got you talking about your mind, let's really talk about your family and what's happening there. So to date, I have been a part of, NFL was actually one of the assisting factors in that at the very beginning. But my program has put 120 fathers back into the lives of their children. Doesn't mean they're back with mom. All right, some of them got back together. It just means they're back in their kids' lifestyle. So what we were able to do is say, hey, you know what? We got these young men running around. We got these young girls running around. And dad's only on the other side of town. Why aren't you involved? And so going to get those dads where they can stop those generational curses. Dad, why aren't you involved? Let's get you the tools and materials and some information and education and get you back involved. So I've sat in rooms of 30 and I've sat in rooms of 1. And we have slowly crept up to 120 fathers back into the lifestyles of their kids. First, it starts off with the kid holding the father accountable because you left me, you abandoned me, right? But giving them the tools and helping them through that relationship. Then once the father has established that trust and he's back, now the father, with what he's gained, the knowledge he's gained by seeing other good men around him, now he knows how to raise and hold his kids accountable. So now all of a sudden we don't have old boy out here doing drill music, because when he was 9, dad was back up. So dad is like, hey man, because I was with these other support systems, I understand that there are different pathways. You ain't got to be no rapper, no ball player. So now all of a sudden you ain't got the baby mama taking her 8-year-old kid and yelling at him because he ain't make the tackle on the football field because this is our only way out, baby. You got to do this. No, because dad has stepped back in and dad has said, no, you know what? There are different levels of success. And now that we've dealt with our trauma and now that I'm back into your life, we are going to deal with what success looks like, because in these conversations, we are teaching them the small steps to break the generational curses. How to actually look at somebody and say, you say, what's the generational curse? 1, dad, stay your ass at home, period. Stay there. And then you get around other men that are also leading their families or trying to figure things out in their community, and you start there. You raise your kids, you go to PTA meetings, be involved in your kid life and nothing else, and then you encourage other men to do the same. So we stop these young men from just being out there. And once we stop the young men from being out there and we teach them self-value, you know who else gets affected in a very good way? It's our young ladies, because we can't forget about them. So now all of a sudden, when dad is back with that little girl no longer has to say, oh, well, I took the affection of a man in any way I could get it, because that's what I thought love was. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have these 18, 19-year-old girls in droves saying, well, man, ain't no way, I got to go chase the bag. So now all of a sudden, you looking at stripping and OnlyFans as a career instead of being a doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, whatever you want to do. You're looking at, oh, I got to get this quick bag to get out, and I might as well use men because ain't no man ever loved me. So we get to squash a bunch of that. And then we want to start dealing with your finances and literacy. So we've also taught a lot of young men, grown and young and women, how to read and write, because the literacy level is ridiculous with the amount of, my wife is a reading specialist in urban centers, right? So we use that skill set to teach young men and young women and older people how to read and write, because once I can teach you value, self-equity, patience, dealing with your trauma, and I can teach you how to read and write to function in society, then I can educate you on something called a resume. And then we can get you with other counselors and other organizations that know how to get you these small jobs. But we can teach you how to take that little position and write it up on a resume to sound good. We can start introducing you to other, you don't have to go to college. There are trade schools all around this country. There's a thing called Job Corps people don't take advantage of. But we're going to introduce you to all those programs, like sending you off to Job Corps where they pay for you, they feed you, and you can leave the environment you're in so you're not around them same fools. You actually get to go out, and when you come back, if you come back with a trade where you can go raise your family. So these are the different steps that we take to get into the person, the machine, and show that machine that there is equity in you, there is value in you. And your measure of success is not what you've been force-fed. Success to you can look totally different. So that's what we're doing every day, all day, having those real conversations to let these young men know and young ladies know. You have to control your own destiny. And what you've been showed is a lie. What I was showed was a lie. Coming outside every day, I got an uncle teaching me at 10 years old. That's the first time I seen a kilo of cocaine, right? But he teaching me at 10 years old how to take a key, break it down, rock it up, have me go outside at 10 to make my first sale, right? 10 years old. Hey, just take this to them. They're going to come back with this. I know what it's like for the dudes on the block to be sitting, talking in your ear like, look, man, you can have this, because I'm watching the old Malibus. If y'all hip to what the Malibus used to be, the old Malibus and the Cutlass and the Regal, sitting on them trues and bows with the candy paint, the 4 6x9s going across the back, all the girls coming outside, because when man hit the block, girl, you know, I know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? And I know what it's like to want to have on the freshest this, the starter jacket is what we used to rock. I know what that's like because that's what they're seeing every day. That's like, oh, that's success. What happened to me, though, was that I got a real awakening from this person called God. And what God showed me was you can keep on messing with these fools if you want to. But I used to sit back on the porch, on the bricks, and look like, man, you know what? 4 houses down from me is my city's largest cemetery. 4 houses down across the street is the city's largest cemetery. You know what was sitting in my corner? The tombstone retailer. So I look every day. So when my partners got killed, we would watch their parents pick out their tombstone from my front porch. And I got buried across the street. And so I realized there has to be more than life. There has to be an awakening. So I walked away from the streets. I ain't want nothing to do with that. And you know what? I walked away, and 6 months after I walked away, everybody that was trying to influence me to be in that lifestyle got killed.
Wow.
Got killed. And so you know what I went and did instead? I went and worked at White Castle. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start guiding my own path because this is not life. This cannot be everything that we were blessed with, breath and a mind, right? This can't be what we're tied down to. And so I broke out. Everybody believes leaving the ghetto is leaving the physical proximity. Ghetto is a mindset. This is the jail. You don't have to leave your area. Matter of fact, more people need to stay to help. It's up here. So once you actually understand that and you take control of it and you break it down into small segments, then you can start working with the people. But you got to start to where they broke. We've been going through trauma for decades. We got to start here. It's not okay for us to be violent. I done broke a lot of bones in my body because I was addicted to violence, because that's all I knew. Violence was the key to everything. But you know what? Once you really pour into a man and invest in a man, and these young men that tell you, yeah, I'm just violent, I do whatever, however, to whoever. Difference is I use my fists. I ain't mind knocking your teeth out your mouth. But the problem was it was violence. And what we have to realize is that is a symptom. That is a consequence of our trauma. It is not healthy. But if I can leave you in a state of violence, if I can cause you to just react, that's why I'm not tripping on people using words like with the whole Joe Rogan thing. If I can cause you just to react, not speak, but react and be violent, why I tell black men all the time, if you think for a second, when they talk about this drill music, the reason I'm saying it's not the problem around there, I'm gonna shut up. The reason the drill music isn't the problem is because for decades now, black men have been born and bred into these socio-economic situations led by certain political groups to make sure that we assassinate each other. This shit didn't start with music. It didn't start with music. Music might be a vehicle that's being used to translate the message, but this started a long time ago. That's why I tell these young men every day, every time you think about picking up a gun or running somebody over with a car that look like you, remember you're killing yourself, because that's what they programmed us to do from day one.
So I think something that's very interesting is the fact, I think you were going to make this point earlier about suburban kids or something that also listen to this music. I'm not exactly sure. But I was thinking about this earlier, how, you know, basically your point is that it's deeper than just music. And I've noticed that even though music, I think, impacts all of us to some level, you can have, like, I've known doctors, teachers, coaches who have had, you know, kind of like the suburban lifestyle, more like the middle class lifestyle, you know, that may have not had some of the harder lives, that will listen to gangster rap while they're headed to work, or you know what I mean, when they're out with their friends or having a good time, and it does not have that same level of impact. Even, you know, some of the kids that I grew up with could listen to that type of music and not be impacted the same way. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have some level of impact. I'm not going to say that, because I absolutely believe, and I talk about this all the time, that the stuff that we're taking in is super important. But I think that when you are already in a certain environment, the music is either a symptom, it helps exacerbate what you're already seeing, maybe it helps speed up, your interest in whatever activity you're partaking in that's within that music. But I just think it's interesting, right? Like, even when you hear people talk about this, when you look at who actually buys a lot of this music, right? Even just hip hop in general, a lot of times it's white suburban kids, and they may not be as affected by the culture in the music that they're listening to, right? But they're still listening to and partaking in that music. And it's really interesting to me because, as a person, as I've grown, as I've gotten to know people, the Gary Chambers, who is running for, I think, the Senate in Louisiana, he posted a video earlier today where he talked about how he grew up in an all black neighborhood, and the neighborhood that he grew up in, didn't have crime, like didn't have bad crime. You didn't really have any like violent acts going on there. And why I related to that video is because not only was it very similar for me, but now in my conversations with people as I travel and these different things, right? I think that, it's this idea that Black people are like a monolith, and we've all had the same experience, and, we all feel the same way about these things. But sometimes, like, hearing people talk, because, you said something earlier about like when you go outside of your door every day and this is literally all you see, it's like you start to think that's literally all it is. And I had a friend who told me, like, some of the stuff that they were doing that they shouldn't have been doing, they just thought it was normal. It wasn't like, oh, this is bad, this is good. It was like, nah, like, sell drugs. If you got to protect yourself or protect your drugs or protect your block or protect your girl or whatever that is, and however that turns out to be, it is what it is. And whatever is music, is hip at the time, or this is what people are into. It's just like a different, cultural thing. And me, like, listening to this, and I'm like, I think that sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own perspective of how things are and how life is or how life should be. You know what I mean? And that's why, me personally, I think that one of the biggest fights is with the moms and the dads, keeping the families together, because it's easy to look at children as if they're just a burden. They're just doing the wrong thing. They're just criminal. They're just violent, but you have children out here that the conditions that they've been born into, I mean, it's horrible. It's unfathomable. I always have trouble with that word, so I don't even know. I try to use. You know, um, I do think that some of these things can be worked out, they can be fixed over time. I do think there are solutions, but we cannot ignore them, and we have to call out what some of those root problems are. And I think we've kind of gotten off onto that like longer that I expected. Kim said, sidebar, Rhonda, I need that purple hoodie. Unicorn Spirit Us and AR-15s type of girl hoodies are available at RhondaMary.com. So go ahead and grab yours. All right, so let's talk about last thing. Let's jump into this Remington story. So let's start with the article that came out from, I think this is New York Times. Sandy Hook family settle with gun maker for $73 million over massacre. Victims' families had sued Remington, the maker of the AR-15 style weapon, used in an attack in an elementary school in Newton, Connecticut. The families of 9 Sandy Hook school shooting victims settled a lawsuit for $73 million on Tuesday against the maker of the AR-15 style rifle used in a massacre in what is believed to be the largest payout by a gun manufacturer in a mass shooting case. The agreement is a significant setback to the firearms industry because the lawsuit works around the federal law protecting gun companies from litigation by arguing that the manufacturer's marketing of the weapon have violated the Connecticut consumer law. The families argued that Remington, the gun maker, promoted sales of the weapon that appealed to troubled men, okay? Like the killer who stormed into Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton on December 14, 2012, killing 20 first graders and 6 adults. The lawsuit was filed by relatives of the 5 children and 4 the adults. So it just goes on to talk about this. Remington has agreed to release thousands of pages of internal company documents, including possible plans for how to market the weapon used in the massacre, a stipulation that had been a key sticking point during the negotiation. So yeah, Remington had to pay out this money. Some people aren't really happy about it. Some people aren't really happy about that. What do you think?
So, one, and we have to understand exactly what occurred. So, I think we all understand the tragedy that Sandy Hook was. I think everybody's abreast of that. But one of the details that people might not know, and it's going to make sense, is that crazed, murderous idiot hurt his own mother to go obtain means to continue to hurt other people. It wasn't like it was sitting on his bedroom wall and he was looking at it and he's listening to these marketing campaigns talking to him. He didn't even have access. He hurt his own mother to gain access to it. 1. 2, the insurance company for Remington, formerly Remington Arms, is now owned by Remington itself is owned by a group I believe called the Rockwell Group. But the insurance companies, the liability companies from Remington, actually paid out the $73 million. All right, so they paid out the $73 million, so it didn't directly come out of formerly Remington's pocket directly. Remington, and that is also to be known. Still sets a dangerous precedent. Don't get me wrong, but just for people to have the details. The other thing is the $73 million that was lost by the liability companies had nothing to do with the gun necessarily. It had nothing to do with, hey, your gun was used, so we're going to get you and we're going to sue you. Here's the dangerous part about that. They blamed it several times because since 2005, you can't necessarily sue a manufacturer if somebody misuses their product, right? That's a federal lawsuit. People have tried, but it's a federal lawsuit. With this one, they did. They went after a loophole that was, strategically worked well for them. They didn't sue Remington because their gun was used. They sued Remington because of how they marketed their gun.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And that's very important to isolate because every gun company needs to pay, every manufacturer of everything, period, needs to pay attention to that. They were able to get $73 million, and it scared the liability companies enough, they didn't even want to go to court. They didn't want to go to trial. It's like, here, we're going to give you this. Whatever they saw, because they went after them for the marketing of it. So just for people to understand that. Now, how do I feel about that once we understand those details? I think it's dangerous. And I feel for the families. I recently just put up, released a whole video that's on my page of my son being involved in a school shooting. I get how that's scary. And mine was nothing compared to what those families in Sandy Hook had to go through.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't remember seeing that.
Oh, yeah. It's on there. It's called From Chaos to Courage on my channel. And he didn't get hurt. Nobody got shot, actually, even though they were shooting. Nobody got hit, thank God. None of the kids got hurt. But if I was out of the state and I felt helpless. So I can only imagine what the families that lost children feel like. I can only imagine. with that being understood and said, and I don't think anybody with an ounce of decency in them would argue that. What's also happening is that if we can start blaming companies, let's stick with the marketing angle because that's the one that they used. Then what about when car companies are speeding around curves in mountains, doing different things with their cars? Now they put on the screen, hey, professional driver closed course, but that doesn't mean you're still not marketing to someone to drive the car fast and do wheelies and put on a racing helmet and drive it. What about bicycle companies? What about weightlifting machine companies? What happens if somebody thinks they can bench press 300 pounds and can't, and they snap, their arm? Where does that stop? Where does it stop to say you are now? So what are we going to have in this country? I can't market. I just have to put a picture of it up and say, I hope you like it. So, but we have to understand that was dangerous for gun companies, and I'm also and for all industry. And here's another person that needs to be warned, I believe, and it includes me. Producers of content need to also be cautious, because essentially many of the deals that are worked out is a lot of these productions are commercials. They're marketing material, right? So if you're putting out a video and you are promoting, say, that rifle, right? If you're promoting that rifle and you're doing all kind of cool kid stuff with it and flying, bam, 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 like, yeah, this is what I do Overwatch with. Yeah, this is what I would use to, kill 4 people if they broke in my house. And if I ever had to go out into the world, this is the gun I need. Whatever you might say, I think that this settlement has just set it up to say, well, we can go after your visuals and we can go after your words and sue you if they happen to use the product. And if they can prove that your marketing material, your YouTube video was used as material to influence this individual to want to obtain that thing to commit these acts, you might be wrapped up in a case as well. So it's scary.
I think it's so interesting that Remington basically filed for bankruptcy, right? You had kind of like you said, I forgot what they're called, but these different agencies or insurances representing Remington that came together to make the decision that, hey, we're just going to go ahead and pay this. We're going to pay this for whatever reason. And yet when you go to all the major networks, they have, Remington settles with family, and it's this kind of knee-jerk, attention-grabbing headline that makes people think, oh, they have the pictures of the moms like holding the pictures of their babies and things like this, and almost kind of creating these firearm manufacturers is like this boogeyman. And the whole time they don't even realize the somewhat technicality or the process by which this is happening. And so the news media is really good for that and creating a narrative, and of course going to try to get people to turn on, people like the manufacturers and things like this. But like you said, that would absolutely create, an awful precedent. And the moment you have a drunk driver, would you want to hold freaking Chevrolet accountable? I just don't think that would be the case. And so I just thought that this was so interesting. $73 million is a lot of money. It's not nearly enough to replace, the life or lives of loved ones. I can imagine it's just an awful, awful thing, to deal with. But when you're looking at the terms of companies and what companies are bringing in, that's not a little bit of money. They're going to feel that, so we'll see. We'll kind of see what happens with this and going forward and how they try to push the needle, because they're just going to look to go after whoever they can. And this is very similar to the social media, whether people are going after the music, the tech agencies, the manufacturers. At the end of the day, at some point, we have to start holding people and individuals accountable for the individual decisions that they are making. And unfortunately, that young man was not able to be held accountable, at least in this realm, because, like the coward that he was, he took his life, right? But with a firearm, just like a car, comes a huge responsibility, because a lot of these things that we may use in our everyday lives, tools that we may have around our home, can become deadly if you don't have a person behind them that is responsible, cares about life. Like you said, this person killed their mom, right? So cares about life, knows what they're doing. And I hate that these are the type of stories that steal all of the gun owner publicity, as opposed to the hundreds and thousands of people that save their lives every year, defensively with firearms. And we continue to have mass shootings be, even though very, very devastating, right? A small percentage of gun owners, or I should say gun usage each year. Very small percent. But unfortunately, the media doesn't characterize it like this. And most times they never do. They skew things, they distort it for the angle that they want to. And they do that by trying to emotionalize viewers and watchers. So, I think it's just very unfortunate.
Agreed. And 17 of the families didn't even get in the lawsuit. I think that lawsuit goes to 9 of them.
Wow.
And it's scary. It's scary. So we also have to be aware that if the manufacturers of various products, and basic economics, if they start absorbing, say, higher insurance costs, right, then me and you got to eat that, right, for whatever we're buying, right? So we have to understand that as well. If this scares them and they incur higher costs, no different than your insurance. Your insurance can go up because 5 people up the street from you had accidents and they had nothing to do with you. But they say, hey, where you live at is now at higher risk. So, hey, your industry now, or you operating in the U.S., is now at higher risk. So we're going to pass this cost along to you, and then do with it what you will. And the manufacturers and companies are going to say, well, I'm going to pass this on down the line, right? And then the consumer has to wind up eating that. So it's pretty dangerous. And for people that are like, hey, well, good for them because I don't like guns. Let's see what happens when it's your favorite car manufacturer, right? So it's not just about the gun. Nobody is arguing that a gun wasn't used. We are arguing that the gun was not responsible. And you can't just, we have to be careful of just celebrating something because, we have a feeling about it. What does it look like for the longevity of not only your country, but your immediate family, right? What is it going to be like if that car would have cost you, $22,000 yesterday is now all of a sudden $31,000. And your insurance goes from being $100 a month to $275 a month, right? But you have to have insurance to drive the car. So where are you getting that extra funds from? Already in a cash-strapped country that doesn't seem to have as much disposable income as it did 10 years ago. So it's on a big level, it's really, really, really scary and going to be something that I know I'm personally going to be monitoring from just kind of the legal and business aspect of it, just simple economics. I want to keep an eye on it.
Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I would say I liked the engagement in the chat. I couldn't read it all because I was focused on you, as any guest should be, but I could see on my peripheral that it was moving. So no, I appreciated being with you. I appreciated being with your audience. I hope that they enjoyed some of the conversation. Just head over to knowthechoice.com. If you want to keep up with me, it's the Real NOC on all your social media platforms. But what I will say is this: take a little time out and invest in you, whoever you are. Sometimes we get busy doing other things, investing in other people, being hyper focused on them and what they need or what our mission is, something outside of you taking care of you. I would encourage everybody to just start with take 15 to 30 minutes every single day to do something you and only you enjoy with no judgment, just what it is in your own zone. If it's meditating, if it's reading a book, if it's going for a walk, if it's having a nice mojito, whatever your thing is, working out, whatever your thing is, take 15 to 30 minutes a day for starters and invest in you. And just believe that everyone that relies on you, everyone that's always pulling on you, everyone that always needs you to answer their concerns and help them out in emergencies, for those 30 minutes, they're just going to have to be okay. Because if you keep depleting yourself without pouring into yourself, then you're going to expire. You're going to evaporate, and then you're not any good to anybody. So take care of yourself. Invest in you before you can invest in anybody else. And that's about all I got. Y'all check out the new merch. We have the Harriet would have smacked the sugar honey iced tea out of you over on the website, along with Don't Mandate Me to Madness and Don't Make Me Become Uncivil About My Civil Rights. So you can check all those swags and merch out over at nootherchoice.com.
All right. Thank you, humble servant, so much for the super chat. He said good discussion. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this Hey Y'all Tuesday. Make sure you share this video and give it a thumbs up. I appreciate to everyone that super chat supports this channel, and to my patrons that make all of this possible. I saw somebody shouting out my new fancy camera. I know y'all see it. Your girl trying to move up in the world. So I appreciate everybody that has supported it. If you would like to get merch, go ahead and head over to RhondaMary.com. And all right, y'all, we will see you next Tuesday. Have a good night. Bye.